The experience I'm about to recount to you is quite short, unfortunately, but I remember it quite vividly. You remember Wally, right? The cute little boy who served as your rival in Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald? Yeah, that's easily one of my favorites. He didn't seem to have any emotional hang ups. He's just not arrogant, or he doesn't constantly call you weak. He's not a hypocrite or of annoyance. He is not trying to deceive you, even for the smallest amount of time. He's just sweet, innocent little boy who wants to be a good Pokemon trainer. He was the one I hated to beat, but at the same time, I love the way he accepted defeat at my character's hands with a vow to try harder made me feel like I was a motivator of some sort. I wasn't beating him mercilessly, I was helping him get better. It had been quite some time since I played Ruby B game, a few years ago. At least I've never once misplaced it. As I suddenly got the urge to play it one day after watching Jirachi Wishmaker movie, I found it neatly tucked away in my sock drawer in the exact same corner which I had left it in. It wasn't even dusty. The cloth protection from a bunch of unused socks had kept it safe from the damaging elements, which it turned the question into why I placed it there in my sock drawer in the first place. I located my DSi. I misplaced my GBA SP quite a few years ago, but not that mattered, and quickly inserted the right cartridge, excited to see my old, completely unbalanced Pokemon team. I selected my save file and saw that I had saved right in front of the Pokemon League, which was good considering I planned to challenge him straight away anyway. Rather, since I was there, I figured that I'd pay attention to my favorite little red rival, friendly visit before doing anything. First Wally, then the league. Then you would see that there's a chance I had been lucky enough to find my game one day, I could find the Mirage Island. As I stepped away from the league's entrance, following the zigzag path downward, I stopped at a moment and opened my party. Normally when I leave a Pokemon in the game alone for a while, I found out that the last thing I did was to trade to help out my Pokedex. On my other games, it certainly wouldn't have been the first time that I've entered a battle completely unaware that I had a party full of level 5 Rattata and Magikarp. That's a bit embarrassing situation to say the least. They were there though. Inferno at level 100, Blaziken, Volcano at level 85, Groudon, Dalaros at level 87, Rayquaza, Dragon Durgon at the level of 65, Salamence, Harbrainer level 55, Absol, and Vengeance at level 34, Bayonet. Now, as I said, I had painfully unbalanced, but they all were there. I just had left them. I was relieved, actually. That meant that Ruby was the game that I haven't abused the PAL Park with. It must have been Emerald. But that's not really important, though. I'm getting off track. My party was there, so I didn't have to waste a few minutes to go back up to the league to switch out my dinky under-level Pokemon. Something was a little better. So I began to my little trek to see Wally once more. As I entered the cave, he was standing there waiting for me already. I couldn't remember if he was supposed to do that or not. As I said that it's been a long time since I've played and fought so much of the game, but I was excited to talk to him either way. I felt guilty for beating him or not, but I really loved seeing him. I approached him and pressed A to talk, but rather than having to say to him something in greeting before challenging into battle, the trainer spotted theme played for a second or two, before the screen flickered, signifying the battle had started. But just as quickly as the screen faded to black, it faded back to the normal intro to the normal cave scene once more. Wally was no longer there. I shrugged it off a bit, thinking that a few years of having the cartridge actually got a little bit wear on the gamer's inner workings. Not that I'm actually technical-savvy enough to really know what they work. I started to walk away, thinking that if I ever see this glitch again continuing the Pokemon League, if it did, I would be out of the game. I was rather having to reset or get a new one, Either option would kill me. Inferno was the best Pokemon I've ever had. Threw out before I could take a single step, passed through the around. The Poke Nav rain, but I didn't even think it would function properly after the caves be like. But since I was kind of close to the exit, I opened to the air to suppose the sense for it to work. Come to Petalburg. Click. I'm not really sure how to explain it, but which little hiccup in my game, which had just had battle scene and then face, that I didn't think I was almost positive that small of dialogue wasn't descripted. I felt uneasy. Nevertheless, I got out of the cave and I selected Dalaros to fly to Pelleberg City. When I got there, I could definitely tell something was off. The area looked foggy and the colors looked as if they were washed out, leaving normally cheerily little town to rather dismal. Even the music was different, just slightly though. The tempo had been noticeably lowered, further adding the incredibly dreary effect. I explored the area a little, going to a few buildings surrounding the Pokemon Center, just to see what had changed. For one thing, no one was around. The area was completely devoid of NPCs, but it didn't take me long to figure out where they all were. I walked up to Wally's parents' house to find 7 NPCs sprites lining up to the path door, 2 columns of free with one standing on each side of the door. All of them wore black, and uneasy feeling began to grow. Curious, I spoke to each of them. None of them seemed happy. This shouldn't happen. I thought he was doing so well. We thought he had beaten it. He looked up to you. Why wouldn't you give me a break? He'd be still with us if it weren't for you. He didn't think he was good enough to move on further, and it's your fault. I knew what was going on, but I didn't want to believe it. But as I walked through into his house, I was forced to. A couple of more NPCs dotted in a small room, and even the black coffin rested in the middle of the area. Wally was dead. I spoke to the other NPCs. Bees, most repeatedly, it's all your fault. But which one I believe was Mother explained the things a little for me. The damp cave air aggravated his condition. He strained himself to become better as he could. He'd finally be as good as you, but he pushed himself too hard, and his body gave out. A hiker found him, a Pokeball clutched in his little hand, and his Pokemon refusing to leave his side. He called us using Wally's nav. Do you know what it's like? Being informed by a total stranger? That someone you loved is dead? You pay your respects and leave. This is your fault. By now I was felt absolutely terrible. Why wouldn't you? So I did as I was told. I walked up to the small casket, and as soon as I touched it, the music stopped and a blank dialogue box popped up. It stayed there for a good few seconds before a single word was slowly typed in. Why? The battle started with a real one this time. Rather than the Tassier that I had experienced earlier, my heart sank as Wally's sprite slid into a supposed trainer's spot. His skin was pale, and his colors were washed out, and he looked quite sad. But what hurt the most was the little announcement. Pokemon trainer Wally wants to have one last battle. He sounded his first Pokemon, a cherished Gardevoir, who also looked upset. I assumed that this would be tend his Pokemon. I sent out Inferno, and sympathy urged me to throw this battle to make it one last good one for him. But the competitor said to me to give it all. I had guess which one I listened for. Inferno powered through each and every one of the Pokemon sat and moved, knocking them flat with one each attack. As the battle ended, Wally slid back into fame, and his sprite was now mostly transparent. He said, "Why can't you let me win?" Then the battle screen faded, and Wally's mother approached my character and pushed him back and away from the coffin. "Get out! You're done here. You disgust me." As she shoved me out the door, instead of appearing outside the house, the screen cut to white and began rolling the credits. As the gamer names of those involved in the production of the game faded in and out, and the white was replaced with the ending scene, poor Wally's funeral procession. NPC sprites slowly parade throughout Pelleberg, the tiny casket in the center of the crowd. My eyes watered as they slowly lifted right out of the sky. The camera followed as they stopped the small patch of grass where Wally had caught his deer Rolts. When they stopped, they all turned to his screen, and just for the minute, I could almost feel the judgment. They turned back at the casket, and the screen faded to white, and Wally's trainer sprite faded in. Beneath it were the words, "In loving memory." And that, my little pretties, was Wally, a Pokepasta written by Tera91. Um, my final thoughts on this story. Well, it's been a long time since I've narrated one of these I guess you could say Pokepastas, because I haven't narrated a Pokepasta in like a long time. I think the last time I did was maybe a few months ago or something. Well, anyways, let's get on with the review. For one, I could definitely say I really like this story. I mean, it does seem to be a pretty good concept and all. Like, it starts off pretty interesting. You know, the player plays his game, and then all of a sudden, they found out that Wally was actually dying. I mean, think of it. I think it's pretty, interesting how it doesn't, go on with, cliches like blood or anything. I mean, this is a creepypasta that didn't involve a lot of blood. I mean, I know it's not really hard to make a lost gaming pasta or something, or a lost Pokepasta without sitting there and adding cliches. This one didn't. Now, for one thing, I could definitely say what I really am impressed with is that this story is more of a feels pasta. It's more of a feels pasta than a creepypasta, because to me it feels more of a feels pasta. I think that's what this story is. I think this story is more of a feels pasta, to be 100% honest. Now, as I was saying, when I first read this pasta, sometime maybe a few months ago, I actually found this one to be more of a feels pasta rather than a creepypasta or pokepasta, whatever you prefer to call it. I mean, the fact that, the idea of Wally, dying just because he wanted to be something good like the protagonist is, I mean, it's pretty sad. Like, I find this one to be more of a feels pasta. If you guys want to call this one a creepypasta or pokepasta, that's fine, but I have a feeling this is a mixture between a feels pasta and a pokepasta. I mean, it's pretty sad, I'm not gonna lie, with Wally dying. At least he died, he didn't really die from, anybody, coming to kill him or anything, or like no Pokemon came and attacked him or anything, killed him or anything. Like, it's not that, which is I'm glad for, because a lot of creepypastas really like to sit there and, have the protagonist, or not protagonist, but like a character dying from whatever death it is. I mean, a lot of creepypastas really do that. I don't know why, but they simply like to do that. So that's definitely saying something. I mean, this story, with all due sincerity, the only thing I would have to say, and it's not really a negative thing, but it does make me question this. How would Wally die from training so hard, with his Pokemon, that he passes out or dies randomly? Like, I mean, you wouldn't die from that. You would probably, well, I mean, you could die depending on if you have health problems, but it doesn't explain if Wally has, any health conditions. Like, I mean, that's confusing when you think of it. Like, it's quite confusing to see this. I mean, it's not a terrible, concept and all that. I mean, what really did kill Wally when he passed out? Like, was it exhaustion? Was it dehydration? I mean, there's not really any explanation regarding that. I mean, it's just really messed up. I don't know why, but it's just really, I don't really know. It's just really messed up when you come to think of this, adding that part in it. I mean, it doesn't really, I don't really know why, but for whatever reason, Wally's sitting there and dying, right after, training so hard. I mean, like, come on, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There's no reason how he died. Like, there's no mention of his health issues. There's no mention of him, how he died. There's like barely any explanation of this story. What would have been better is if there was a proper explanation to how Wally died or why he died. Like, for example, maybe he had a heart attack, or maybe he was, I don't know, maybe he was having bad thoughts. I'm not saying the actual word, but it begins with S, and you guys should probably already know what that is. I can't really say the name of it. I mean, there's no explanation on how Wally, there's no explanation on why Wally died. That's the only thing I'm confused on this story, is how Wally died. Like what caused Wally to die? There's no explanation for that. I would like it if there was a proper explanation to it, because then that way there would be a lot, it would be understandable, and it would help us out a lot more if that was the case. But yet again, I don't really know, but you guys can maybe use your own imagination and figure it out. So, I mean, besides the negative that I didn't like about the story about no explanation to how Wally died, well, why Wally died, like what caused him to die or anything like that. I mean, there's no explanation for that. I mean, if there was a proper explanation to what killed Wally or something, then the story would be believable in a sense, but it would also help out. Now, anyways, with that being the case, that being said, I'm gonna sit here and say this now. Like I'm gonna say, this is simply my own personal opinion, and if you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these creepypastas or feels pastas. I think this is more of a mixture of a feels pasta and a pokepasta. I guess you could put it that if you like. And we're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these creepypastas or feels pastas or pokepastas, whatever you guys prefer to call it. And this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of this story would have to be I'm gonna give this one a 7 out of 10. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10 because it was beautifully well written. It had a good concept going for. And to the author of the story, which happens to be Tera91, great job with this story. This was fantastic. I enjoyed it. But the only thing I would have to say is maybe if there's, have a better explanation to what killed Wally, what caused him to collapse and all that. I know it says that he was trained too hard or something, but I mean, maybe he could have passed out from exhaustion, but I don't know. I really don't know what actually killed Wally. If there was more of an explanation to what caused his death, then that way the story would make more sense. At least to me, that is. So anyways, what did you guys think about this creepypasta or pokepasta, feels pasta, whatever you prefer to call it? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what we have done personally to help make this story a lot better. Feel free to leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode, and if you're new to my channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro because I'm out.